Coming up before you know it, Colorado Day, the day where everything stands still, the Colorado Parade, the Colorado trees, the presents for the kids, and Old St. Colorado coming down the, no, that's something else. Tom Noel from the University of Colorado.
Noel,
I'm sorry.
like Christmas.
Christmas, Noel.
I'm going to call you Caldara after all.
That's all right. That's there are a lot of other good names too. Hey, I wanted to talk to you. That Colorado Day is coming up. What is Colorado Day?
It's the day President Ulysses S. Grant officially signed Colorado is a state.
Now, that was an act of Congress.
Yeah.
And we were a Kansas territory before that, correct?
Yeah, Arapahoe County, Kansas territory.
How did we get the borders? I'm always curious about that. We have this wonderful rectangular state. Why?
Right. It was all part of something else. Originally, it was Kansas and north, Baseline Road in Boulder, where you live, right?
Yeah.
North of that was Nebraska. The west side of the Continental Divide was Utah. South of the Arkansas River was New Mexico. So we were carved out of Utah, New Mexico.
And they were just territories in other states, or were they territories of states?
They weren't states, they were territories.
What's the difference in that?
It takes a while for Congress, and you have to have a certain population to become a state, certain political pressure.
Influence.
Yes,
there you go.
you know about that. Political.
So why did we become a state?
People were fighting for it from early on because all these gold rushers come in. You have 30,000 people here. They say, we've got more people than New Mexico or Nebraska or Kansas. We should be a state. And so it was a long struggle to get it. And Coloradans did celebrate on August 1, 1876, when it finally happened.
So we're in this wonderful political year. We're in this year where everything's going crazy. People are going, this is the worst I've ever seen. I've never seen people so polarized in my life. The language is awful. And I'm thinking, wait a second, we had a civil war. I'm thinking we were more polarized back then. I mean, there's some bad times. I'm just curious, in Colorado history, is this the worst it's been politically? I'm talking about political dialogue, the ugliness of it, the partisanship, or did we have some good stories in the past? It
is close, but it used to be a lot more corrupt in the past. In the past, you were rewarded for your vote. You got a beer, you got $1. I found one guy who lived here in Five Points that voted 29 times. That's $29, 29 drinks on election day. It used to be a lot more fun. And now we fuss if only 50% turnout. In the old days, we had 150% turnout at the polls.
You still get paid when you vote. You get Medicaid, and you get Obamacare, and you get all sorts of wonderful things. So you still get paid. It's just afterwards.
But John, instead of all these TV ads, wouldn't it be great if they just sent us all the money directly?
That would be terrific. I mean, it's actually funny when you look at how much is spent per vote. There are campaigns that spend hundreds of dollars per vote, and I was like, just give me the money. Give me half the money. It's not going to change it. Who are some of the characters? Give me like the ugliest time in Colorado politics.
Well, Soapy Smith. Have you heard of him?
Yes.
Jefferson Randolph Soapy Smith. He was a Republican poll judge, and he would check the ballots, throw them in the trash can, or throw them in the ballot box, depending on what happened.
Is that not done? Is that frowned upon? I'm sorry.
That was frowned upon.
I'm missing what you're trying to tell me.
Mayor Wolf Londoner, a mayor of Denver, the only one forced to resign because he actually proved in court that he had been elected with a lot of fraudulent votes. And it happened a lot of other times. Do you remember the 4 governors in one day? 3 governors in one day.
No, what was that?
Yeah, where we had a governor elected, but people said it was corrupt, so they looked it out, threw him out, put in his opponent. Then there was an uproar about that. Jesse McDonald was the...
What year was this?
This was 1904, the most notorious election in Colorado history, when you have literally 3 governors in one day because of the corruption.
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about the recalls that happen now. That recalls seem to be quite the rage right now, and that we have citizens who are pretty active, and we have these politicians, even on the same team, which backbite. And the Republican Party, my party, we're a circular firing squad. Look at the presidential race; it's just a perfect example. But tell me about the governor and lieutenant governor, because up until recently, the governor never chose his running mate. Other people did, and sometimes they didn't like each other.
Right. I don't know when that changed. Do you?
That changed under Bill Owens in his second term because he wanted to choose a running mate and get rid of the one that was given to him. And so I've heard stories that the governor sometimes couldn't go out of the state because if he did, his lieutenant governor would run around and do the pardons and veto bills, and so he was held hostage in his own thing. How do you think how do you think history is going to remember some of the caricatures and characters we see now? I look at somebody like Doug Bruce, who I think is a genius man, but he doesn't get along well with people, and he's spending time in the pen. Is he going to be in 100 years, will there be a CU professor talking about him?
Yeah, or at least he'll be a good sidebar in a Colorado history text book, wouldn't he? And he's the one that kicked reporters and abused the press, right?
Well, he doesn't say he kicked him. He was a tap with his foot, and it only happened once, but that was enough.
And then he spends time in jail for this and that, right?
This and that, and hiding some donations the way he shouldn't have in different places. When you see politics today, do you see it in a historic lens? I mean, do you kind of, when you see something as a historian, do you go, that's not new? Everybody thinks that's new, but it's not.
Yeah, there's always been the accusations, the charges, the nasty comments, but yeah, I agree with you, Joe. This is a particularly vociferous year.
Is this the worst in Colorado history? Can we say this is as ugly as it gets?
I'm trying to think back when it could have been uglier. Well, those elections where they approved fraudulent voting. Oh, and then the 1904, the 3 governors in one day.
Why is Denver our capital?
I think because of aggressive leadership. People like Governor John Evans, editor William Newton Byers, the Rocky Mountain News makes a huge difference. He even promotes Denver as a seaport. In the Rocky Mountain News, they announced that we have steamships going down the South Platte, headed for Omaha, St. Louis, New Orleans, trying to convince people back east that Denver was the place in the Rocky Mountain region.
And that's how we became the state.
Yeah, I think the promotional, ability. You know, Golden wanted to be the capital. Colorado City wanted to be the capital.
What was Colorado City?
Colorado City is now part of Colorado Springs.
Okay.
It was the older settlement. It was, for 1 year, was the territorial capital. And then Golden from 1862 to 1866.
Talk to me a little bit about the railroad. My career has been made on trying to stop silly railroad expansions that the government does. But there was a time that was the only way this city could survive, right? Right.
When the Union Pacific, they surveyed a route through Colorado. But editor Byers, the news said there are just a few molehills, few hills west of town. So they went up and surveyed over Berthoud Pass, Chief Engineer Grenville Dodge, in September and got buried in a snowstorm, waist deep. Said, no, this isn't going to work. So they go north through Wyoming over South Pass, which is like 7,000 feet instead of 12,000 feet. And the minute that happens, Cheyenne becomes the rail capital, not Denver. Half of Denver moves to Cheyenne.
Because this is the gateway to the west, then, is Cheyenne.
Right, this is going to be
Denver.
The Rocky Mountain metropolis. This is where going to be Jon Caldara show, and everything will be up in Cheyenne, not...
Oh, God, that would be awful. And who built the railroad?
At that point, Evans is the key figure. He's a friend of Lincoln, who was appointed governor. He's now out as governor, but he's still here. He still has a lot of clout. Editor Byers, the news, and other people, well, mainly people with a lot of real estate here that they're going to lose out. So they lobby.
Backroom deals even back then. I love it.
Put together Denver Pacific Railway and Telegraph Company. It builds a 106-mile lifeline from Denver to Cheyenne. And once you get the connection with the transcontinental, other lines come in, the Kansas Pacific, the Colorado Central, and whatnot. And Denver, in 1860, John, the population was 4,759. And guess what? It is 10 years later.
1860. This is Denver we were talking about?
Yeah.
Was how many? 4,000?
The census, 4,759.
That's pretty sizable,
But they
wasn't
say, wait until 1870, we're going to catch up with San Francisco. We're going to be the big city. 1870, it's 4,769. That's a net gain of 10 people in the great booms out of the west. Then the railroad comes in, and it's over 35,000 by 1880, over 106,000 by 1890. So the railroad is the key factor.
And the government didn't build it, did it?
No.
Ah, there we go. Has Denver always had a bit of a chip on its shoulder as far as this feeling like a redheaded stepchild to other cities? I remember when I was a kid when the Broncos first went to the Super Bowl. and Dan Rather announced on the evening news that it was Denver and Dallas, and they said Little D versus Big D, and half the town was about ready to throw their TVs out because that was fighting words. You know, and it always seemed like Denver needed, you know, that there was an inferiority complex.
Yeah, I think you're right, especially when you get bypassed, you know, by the railroad. Why Cheyenne instead of Denver? So there was always this chip, and we had to have a bigger and better airport, DIA. You know, we were getting bypassed by Phoenix and other towns. Build a bigger railroad in the whole world to come to Denver. And then the famous New Yorker cover that shows the West, but Denver's not there, but Las Vegas and LA, San Francisco are.
I love the New Yorker's view of map of America, and
yeah.
there's nothing. All flyover country is not there. Yeah, it's funny to see some of these things come around again. So, you teach our friend Dick Lamb, and you know Dick Lamb. I mean, what an amazing guy. And occasionally he asked me to come and talk to his classes, you know, the token crazy conservative, and I'm happy to do so. And I look at these kids and I say, do you know who this is? And, yeah, it's Dick Lamb. It's like, it's Dick Lamb, you know, he's right there in person. And, you know, he stopped the Olympics from coming. Do you know this? They're talking about bringing the Olympics. You know, and I get the sense of how quickly these important characters are, and how quickly they get forgotten.
You're right, and Dick was so important, you know, for the environmental movement, for stopping the Olympics, a real turning point in Colorado history. Before that, we always, the bigger the better, boom state, do what the politicians, the bankers, the developers tell you to do. And
when he stopped the Olympics, to see it now pop up, last year there was this talk of, we need the Winter Olympics here, and I'm shaking my head going, we did this one. We've been here before. Is there one character in all of Colorado politics that kind of stands out? I mean, other than me, of course. Historically, who stands out?
Let's see, there's Jon Caldara and there's Davis Wade.
Who's Davis Wade?
The first populist governor. You know, before you had just Democrats and Republicans. He runs on the People's Parties, this kind of radical party that wants to nationalize the railroads, nationalize the banks, a lot of things like that. He's elected in 1894, and there's the City Hall War. Have you heard of this one? Where Waite, who can appoint the police and fire board in Denver, decides to fire these crooks. And so he sends the National Guard down to City Hall. There's actually a war there with Soapy Smith standing on top of the building waving a stick of dynamite.
Now that's Colorado. I got to run. Tom, thank you. Tell a friend about Independence Institute, and we'll see you next week.